Okay. श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां सदा बालरूपापि विघ्नाद्रिहन्त्री महादन्त्यवक्त्रापि पञ्चास्य मान्या विधीन्द्रादिमृग्या गणेशाभिधामे विदत्तां श्रियं कापि कल्याणमूर्तिः श्रीरामसौमित्रि जटायुवेद षडाननादित्यकुजार्चिताय श्रीनीलकण्ठाय दयामयाय श्रीवैद्यनाथाय नमः शिवाय वागर्थाविव सम्पृक्तौ वागर्थप्रतिपत्तये जगतः पितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं नमो देव्यै महादेव्यै शिवायै सततं नमः नमः प्रत्यै भद्रायै प्रियता प्रदास्मताम् नमः पार्वतीपतये हर हर महादेवा सर्वत्र गोविंद नाम संकीर्तनं गोविंदा गोविंदा श्री जगदम्बिकायै जय जय. With the boundless grace of Sri Periyawal, we are entering into the fourth lecture on common dharmas today, and I have a very special reason to be very happy today, because I am speaking from Sri Matham at Kanchipuram. With the immediate blessings of the Adhishtanams of the two Periyavals and the immediate presence of Sri Periyaval, this Upanyasam is now taking place. I have been asked to stay in Sri Matham precincts during Dharmasam for 1 month. In fact, my plan to travel to Mumbai from Chennai was cancelled. And as per instructions of Sri Periyaval, we are now put up at Sri Matham. It's a great opportunity for us, great blessing. So today's Upanyasam, I believe, is charged with higher power than the previous ones. Now, common dharmas, we started with looking at the 4 Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. The 14 sources of knowledge, Vidyasthanas. And we said that Dharma is entirely, Dharma entirely derives its authority from Veda. Veda is Apaurusheya and Anadi, beginningless and not human made. And all of Dharma is meant for the advancement of the human being on the spiritual path. That is the purpose of Dharma. Of course, it does not mean that Dharma is not going to help us in mundane pursuits. Definitely it does. Yato abhyudaya nishreyasa abhivriddhihi. Dharma, one of the definitions of Dharma. Abhyudaya and nishreyasa. Abhyudaya is mundane advancement. Nishreyasa is spiritual advancement. Now, dharmas are divided into 2 groups we saw, common dharmas and dharmas applicable to varna and ashrama. Common dharmas, we have chosen 10 as per Manu's instructions. Dhriti kshamadamasteyam shauchamindriya nigraha dhir vidya satyamakrodho dashakam dharma lakshanam. Out of these 10, we have gone over the first 5, Dhriti, the steadfastness, Kshama, forbearance and compassion, Dama, keeping the outer exterior sense organs under constraint, under control, Asteyam, non-stealing, it is non-covetousness in a larger sense, and Shaucham, purity, purity in thought, word and deed. Now today we are starting with Indriya Nigraha. In fact, out of the 10, There are two which are very comprehensive. One was Shaucham, purity. Purity is very comprehensive. And another is Indriya Nigraha, it is very comprehensive. All are interconnected. That is another thing. If you follow these 10 dharmas 100%, then you have followed all the 10. Because it is not possible to follow any one dharma 100% without keeping the other 9 dharmas in operation. It's not possible. Hence, they are all interconnected. Indriya Nigraha is a very comprehensive thing. That is keeping all the sense organs under complete control. Nigraha, complete control. Indriya is sense organs. Actually, there is a very famous verse from Viveka Chudamani of Adi Shankara Bhagavad Pada. As all of you know, Adi Shankara has authored 3 types of granthas, works. One is called Bhashyas or commentaries on Prasthana Traya, that is 10 Upanishads, which we saw earlier on an earlier occasion, and 10 Upanishads, and then Brahma Sutras and Bhagavad Gita. These 3 are called Prasthana Traya, the basic source of authority for Advaita Vedanta. Now, after these commentaries, he has written what are called the Prakarana Granthas to make Advaita Vedanta more simple, more easily accessible to common man who knows some Sanskritam. To such people, he has written, for such people, he has written the Prakarana Granthas. He has written many Prakarana Granthas, Advaita Siddhi, Vagbodha, and so on, Tattvabodha, and so on. Viveka Chudamani is one of the topmost in that list of Prakarana Granthas. Explanatory manuals. Prakarana Granthas are explanatory manuals because commentaries are difficult to digest. It needs extraordinary scholarship to go through them because he has gone into enormous subtle details in the commentary, including Vyakarana, including grammar. Grammar, demolishing the arguments of the opponent, and so on. There's a lot of difficulty in understanding. It's not easy. Whereas Prakarana Grantha, he is establishing Advaita Vedanta on a sound footing in a simple to understand basis. And Viveka Chudamani is a very popular, very extensive Prakarana Grantha, having more than 500 shlokas. Now there he says, and the third group is Stotras. After Bhashyas, after Prakarana Granthas come the Stotras. Stotras normally is a Stotra, is in praise of the Lord. But here if you see Adi Shankara Stotras, they are different from ordinary genre of Stotras. Any of Adi Shankara Stotras, if you see, the last few verses at least, if not the entire Stotra, would be directed towards understanding Advaita Vedanta. Any Stotra if you take Subramanya Bhujangam, there's a lot of Advaita Vedanta right from beginning to end. If you take Rama Bhujangam, there is every Stotra you have, Shiva Manasa Puja, this, that, any Stotra you take, you will find Advaita Vedanta mentioned and described and explained. Now, if we take Viveka Chudamani, the Prakarana Grantha, which goes into A to Z of Jnana Marga, where one should start, how one should be led towards Jnana. What are the duties of Guru and what are the duties of Shishya? Everything is explained there. Now, there, this Indriya Nigraha is mentioned as very, very important as a first step towards attaining the first step in Jnana Marga, that is Viveka and Vairagya, discrimination and detachment. Now, detachment and discrimination cannot come unless sense organs are completely under control. Now, he says it in a very beautiful words. Sabdadibhi panchabhireva pancha panchatvamapuhu swagunena baddhaha kuranga matanga patanga mena bhringanara panchabhiranchita kim. Now, if you see the 5 external sense organs, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, and Gandha, or the 5 Tanmatra, 5 qualities. Shabda is sound, Sparsha is touch, Rupa is vision, Rasa is taste, Gandha is smell. Now, these are the 5 sense organs which give us these 5 senses. Now, with any one of these senses actively working, many animals, many birds come to difficulty. Now he is explaining one by one. Shabdadibihi panchabihi. Eva pancha panchattvamapuhu sugunena bandhaha. With these five qualities, panchatva means death. That is dissolution of the body into the five elements. What is death? The body dissolves into the five elements. The prana leaves the body. So panchatva is death. Now, these birds and animals meet death because they give in to the demands of one of the five organs, sense organs. Sugunena baddhaha, because they are bound by their nature. Kuranga, matanga, patanga, meena. Kuranga is deer. Deer is for shabda. How they catch deer in the forest? They use a certain sound, and the deer is attracted and then falls into the trap. Matanga is elephant, that is sparsha. They dig a deep pit, they keep a female elephant there, and on seeing the female elephant, the male elephant comes rushing and falls into the pit and gets caught. Patanga is moth, that is rupa, vision. On seeing the light, it gets attracted, it falls into the lamp and is destroyed. Meena is fish, rasa, taste. Meena, fish falls for the bait. Bhringa is honeybee, it falls for the smell. It goes into the flower and the flower closes and then the bee dies inside the flower. Now, they are all attracted by just one, whereas human beings are attracted with all the five. That is the point he makes. Tellingly told. Tellingly told. These five examples which we saw of birds and animals, they are all attracted by only one of the five senses, whereas human being has got all the five senses working all the time when he is awake. All the five are active during his hours of wakefulness. So he says, Panchabi Anchita Kim, because he is attacked by all the five senses, what will happen to him? So he is warning us to be extremely careful. This is what is Indriya Nigraha. As we saw the other day, all Indriyas work under the control of the mind. If you keep the mind under control, the Indriyas will automatically come under control. So indirectly, it means you have to bring the mind under control. All our japa, all our Gayatri japa, all our puja, all our homam, everything is meant only for chitta shuddhi. In fact, if you see Sandhya Vandanam, there is no specific purpose mentioned. We say Sri Parameshwara Pritartham. We don't say for this purpose, for that purpose. When you do a puja or when you do a homam at home, you have got a list of wishes which are mentioned during Sankalpam. For this, for that. My son should get married, my daughter should get married, I should get promotion. Everything is mentioned there. Udyoga, Bhavriddhi, this, that, Ayura, Arogya. There is no Ayura, Arogya, there is that Udyoga mentioned in Sandhya Vandanam. Why? Sandhya Vandanam is one of the greatest of prayers to Savita, isn't it? Why there is no mention? Because it is the only purpose is Chitta Shuddhi. Only purpose of Sandhya Vandanam is Chitta Shuddhi, nothing else. Because it is Chitta Shuddhi which pleases Parameshwara. Parameshwara is pleased only when you have a pure mind. The purity of mind is achieved by repeated japa. Now, all these mind control is brought about by various means. One of the means is japa, japa yajna. Yajnanam japa yajnosmi, Bhagavan says in Gita. So, japa is one of the common, easy to follow measures to focus the mind on one aim and bring it gradually under control. Now, this is what Shankara is also mentioning in his Viveka Chudamani. Now, if you, in the same Gita, how karma develops into destruction of the human being, he is explaining it very nicely. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangasteshu upajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho vijayate krodhat bhavati sammohaha sammohat smriti vibhramaha smriti bhramshat buddhinasho Buddhinashat pranashyati. It starts with only the mind going towards an object. Simple. Jayato vishayan pumsaha. Sangaha teshu upajayate. The moment he starts thinking about an object, he develops attachment to that object. Sangat sanjayate kamaha. Repeated thought gives attachment. Attachment leads to desire. We have to get that, you have to possess that object. Kamat krodho abhijayate. When you cannot possess that object, we saw the other day, if the kama is fulfilled, it leads to lobha, because mind is never satisfied with one desire. If one desire is achieved, we have a train of desires following. So that is lobha. If the first desire is not achieved, then we become very angry. We become angry with so many things, including Bhagavan. So we are not angry with our inadequacy, our lack of effort. We are not angry with that. We are angry with everything else outside of our control. That is krodha. Kamat krodho abhijayate, krodhat bhavati sammoha. When one is overcome by anger, he is deluded. He doesn't know what is right and what is wrong. His viveka is destroyed. Sammoha smriti vibhramaha. Because all viveka stems from smriti. Smriti means memory. Memory of what is right and what is wrong. What is right and what is wrong, how do we decide? On while we make a decision on whether a certain activity is right or wrong. It is sanctioned by Shastra or not sanctioned by Shastra. So you have to know the Shastra in advance. Only you know it is, because Shastra is the only touchstone to decide whether an activity is right or wrong, whether it is dharmic or adharmic. So how does Shastra come into play? It comes into play through memory only, isn't it? Smriti vibhramaha, because the fellow loses memory completely, he is lost. Smriti bhramshat buddhi nasho, because intellect draws upon chitta. Chitta is the source of memory. Intellect draws upon it and decides. Intellect is the deciding factor. Now, intellect is not able to decide, because it doesn't know what is right and wrong. It decides generally the wrong one because it is tempting. Pratibhramshat buddhinasho buddhinashat pranashyati. So he is destroyed because of the lack of intellect. How did we start? We started with Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha. He just started thinking about an object. This is why the indriyas have to be kept under control. Whenever a thought comes, an indriya has to support that thought. Then only the thought moves ahead. If it remains only a thought, not much harm is done. No, though it's not desirable, because repeated thought leads to action. So, but if it is only thought, it doesn't harm so much. But every thought is accompanied by an action by an indriya. One of the 5 organs comes into play. So he is warning us about this. Now, all these 6, the famous 6 enemies, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, they are all stemming from what Bhagavan said, dhyayato vishayan pumsaha. It starts with that. So we have to be very careful, and the conquest of all these ripus, shad ripus, the 6 enemies, is possible only when indriyas are under control. Now, Upanishad, Kathopanishad, brings it very nicely through an allegory. Atmanam rathinam vidhi, shariram rathamevatu, buddham tu sarathim vidhi, mana pragrahamevacha. The allegory is like this. You imagine Atma, which is residing in the body, Rathi, the charioteer. Shariram rathamevatu. Obviously, Atma is seated in the chariot of the body. Buddhim tu sarathim vidhi. Who is guiding the body? Buddhi, intellect. How is it guiding? Mana pragrahamevacha. Buddhi directs manas, mind. Intellect decides what is right and wrong, and it tells manas, do this. So mana is the pragraha, the controlling ropes. Indriyani hayanahu. What is it controlling? It is controlling the horses. Chariot is drawn by horses. The controlling ropes are the mind, and charioteer is Atma. Buddhi is the Sarathi. Indriyani hayanahu. The horses are the indriyas, the sense organs. Vishayan steshu gocharan. Where do they Horses go, they go on the road. So the roads are the Vishayas, the objects of attachment, objects of desire. Atmendriya mano yuktam bhoktetyahur manishinaha. The one who is keeping all these under proper unison, Atma, Indriya and Manas. Atmendriya mano yuktam bhoktetyahur manishinaha. The one who is keeping these under proper harmony, he is called bhokta, enjoyer. He has really enjoyed the faculties given to him, the facilities given to him. He is not misusing any of these facilities or faculties, which are rare gifts of God. Rare gifts of God are these Indriyas. Indriyas are so powerful. Powerful Indriyas have been gifted by Bhagavan to the human being. Now, if you make proper use of it, then you reach the fourth Purushartha, the moksha. If you don't, as Bhagavan says in Daivasura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga, you fall repeatedly into Asuri Yonis, Asuri births. Now, Manu also explains this in a very nice manner. Srutva, Sprishtva, cha Drishtva, cha Bhuktva, Gnatva, cha Yonaraha, Nahrishyati Glayati va, Savijñe yo Jitendriyaha. Now, what is the definition of a Jitendriya? One who has conquered the sense organ. What is the definition? How do we know who is a Jitendriya? Rama is called Jitendriya. Hanuman is called a Jitendriya. Now, what is the difference between Jitendriya and one who has not conquered is Ajitendriya? One who has not conquered is sense organ. He is now giving the definition. Srutva, Sprishtva, cha Drishtva, cha Bhuktva, Gnatva, cha, all the five he is mentioning. Srutva, hearing. Sprishtva, touching. Drishtva, seeing. Bhuktva, eating. Gnatva, smelling. He does all the five. Yo na hrishyati glayati va. By doing all these five, if a man does not become happy, does not become sorrowful, that is the definition. By seeing, by smelling, by touching, by hearing, if you don't become happy, if you don't become aggrieved, then you are a Jitendriya. Na hrishyati glayati va savijñeyo Jitendriya. He is Jitendriya. Indriyanam tu sarvesham yadyekam sharati indriyam. Then he is warning you. Now I have got five Indriyas. Doesn't matter. Only one of my Indriyas is weak. All the other four are very strong. I have kept all the four under control. Only my seeing faculty is bad. I keep seeing wrong things. Then what happens? Indriyanam tu sarvesham yad ekam kharati indriyam. Even if one Indriya kharati, if it is weak, if it is leak, kharati is actually, there is a hole in the, he is explaining that. Tena kharati prajna drite pada adivodakam. If you hold water in a bottle with hole, can you hold water? You cannot hold water. It drains off. Same way, Tenasya Sharati Prajna. This follows Prajna. This follows consciousness. Prajna cannot be translated easily. Prajna is not knowledge. Prajna is consciousness. Is being aware. Awareness is drained off. Tenasya Sharati. Because through that one Indriya, which was weak, which has holes, his Prajna is gone. So you have to be careful with all the five, like what Shankara advised in the Viveka Chudamani Shloka. Now, if you see our Puranas, we find that all the Asuras, all of them, without exception, never practiced Indriya Nigraha. Their fort was opposite of Indriya Nigraha, isn't it? All of them, without exception. Now, if you take Durga Saptashati is very famous. Everybody is aware of the three stories there. The first one is on Madhu Kaitaba. These Madhu and Kaitaba were two asuras who were born out of Vishnu's ears at the time of, before start of creation, at the time of Pralaya. There was no creation, there was no life. Except Brahma, nobody was born. That was the condition. Now these two asuras were born out of Vishnu Karna Malodbhutau, Hantam Brahmana Mudyatau. They were born out of the mala, out of the rubbish in the ears of Vishnu. That's what the story says. Now, these asuras had no reason to be hostile to Brahma. There was absolutely no reason. They were roaming around here and there. They saw Brahma seated on a lotus. They became angry with him for no reason. He said, vacate the lotus, become my slave. Why you are sitting on this lotus like a big man? We are the biggest forces now. This is how arrogance, conceit, mada. Mada is what drove them to threaten Brahma, isn't it? This is what happened. Why did Mada come in? Because there was no Indriya Nigraha, isn't it? Why there was no Indriya Nigraha? Because they allowed their manas, their mind, wavering to go anywhere it likes. That is what the story goes. Same, they wanted to overpower Brahma, Madhu and Kaitaba for no reason. Similarly, if you take Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha had no reason to take the earth, take Bhumi under the sea. There was no reason. Just like that. For troubling, Himsa is the only aim, only purpose they want to serve. And after he was dead, Hiranyakashipu developed terrible hatred of Vishnu, incurable hatred of Vishnu. Nothing could bring him out of that hatred. Nothing. Whatever Prahalada tried, nothing could shake him out of that hatred. That kind of deep, intense hatred he developed for Vishnu. This is the asuric tendency. Similarly, Mahishasura, Shumbha, Nishambha, the other two stories in the Durga Saptashati, they all had terrible attachment for their kingdom, for the kingdom of Indra, for women on seeing Devi. So this kind of delusion, Brahma, is what caused their downfall. That's what we are seeing. So sensual pleasures were the cause of downfall of all these asuras. Now, these were asuras. Now, what happens to rishis? Even rishis have fallen under the sway of Maya. Now, Kashyapa is the greatest rishi ever known, isn't it? Kashyapa is the first rishi who is responsible for entire creation. Entire creation, except human beings, were born out of Kashyapa. Kashyapa and his various wives. Through Diti were born Asuras, Daityas. Through Aditi were born Adityas, that is Devas, and so on. Various, through Vinata, Garuda, and other eagles, like this. Through another wife, Sarpas, snakes, and so on. Entire creation was developed by, was created by Kashyapa. Sakya Maharishi, of so much power, so much tapas. Without tapas, is it possible to even imagine the entire creation can be done by one Maharishi? So much tapas he had. Now, such a man, such a Maharishi, fell under the sway of one Asura Stri, and she was known as Maya. Her name itself was Maya. She was sent by her father Asurendra to Kashyapa to somehow entice him so that Surapadma would be born, Surapadma and his brothers. They were all born in one night. This Kashyapa came under the sway of Maya in the evening, and during one night, all these three brothers and one sister. Sister was Ajamukhi. Shorapadma, Simhamukha, and Tarakasura. They were all born with not only those four, with huge army, 2 lakhs of army men and women were born during one night. This is Kashyapa. Now, Kashyapa, and later on, when Maya left after this, when Maya left him, he became sorry at separation from Maya. Such a great tapasvi, he could not bear the separation from Maya. He was weeping. The Brahma had to come personally and console him. He said, what is this? You are a great tapasvi. She was an Asura girl and you fell under her charms. And then he, see, that is the advantage of a tapasvi. If an ordinary human being falls, it is very difficult to get up. Whereas tapasvi, he falls, but he gets up fast because of the tapas. So after Brahma's advice, he immediately forgot Maya and started intense tapas. So the story goes in Skanda Purana. So if you find other Puranas, you will find similar stories. Vishwamitra, he also came under the sway of Menaka for many years, not 1 year, 2 years, many years, 10,000 years. And he gave birth to Shakuntala. So goes the story. Now, even these are strange developments. There is another more strange story that is about Narada. It comes in Devi Bhagavatam. There are two incidents of how Narada came under the sway of Maya. Once he wanted to see Maya, though he was dissuaded by Vishnu. He said, everybody is talking about Maya. I don't know. I am a Jitendriya, he said. He told Vishnu, I am a Jitendriya. Even if he had said, I am a Jitendriya, it would not have mattered. And he went ahead. He said, Jita Maya. I have overcome Maya also. Then Vishnu warned him, don't say that. If you stop at Jitendriya, at least I can understand. You are a great soul, Jitendriya. But don't say Jita Maya. Maya is so powerful that nobody can claim he has conquered Maya. But he said, no, I don't understand this Maya. What is this Maya? I want to see. Achha, he dissuaded, Vishnu dissuaded, but still Narada was insistent on seeing Maya. Then Narada was born a woman. She married a king. A lot of children were born, grandchildren were born. All of them were dead because that was a royal family. All of them were dead in a war. Only the king and queen, who was Narada, were left. At that time again, Vishnu came and then disabused Narada of all this Maya. Similarly, this is one incident. Another incident, Narada came down to earth and then he fell for the charm of a girl. He was cursed by another sage to become monkey-faced. Even with monkey face, he married that girl. Afterwards, the monkey face was changed by the same sage. And then afterwards, he came to normal. And then he went back to Swarga. Such is the case with Devarshi Narada. Now, why all these stories are recounted? They are all recounted not for us to say, oh, when those great people came under the sway of Maya, who are we normal human beings? Not for that. To take lessons and say that if those people have fallen, we have to be even more careful. We are in Kali Yuga. We have all these temptations around us. We have to be extremely careful. This is only for that. These Puranas describe all these stories in great. There are many more stories. Markandeya and Pralaya water, Srimad Bhagavatam talks about it. Now, there have been many Jivan Muktas, including our Acharyas of Kamakoti Parampara, who have conquered sense organs, Jitendriyas, Jitamayas. Ramakrishna Paramhamsa was one such. He kept his wife on a pedestal of a Devi. He performed Shodashi Puja to her. Is it possible to even think of such a situation? But we know it happened just 1 century ago. We know all that. It's a history. You can't disbelieve history, but it's unbelievable story. So if a human being in Kali Yuga could overcome all the sense organs, sense pleasures, and worship his own wife as Devi incarnate, then why can't we follow them? That is the lesson which Dharma teaches us. We have to be. But there is another aspect of this. In everyday life, keeping sense organs under control is an aim. But sense organs are always under play when we are awake. And mind is the only force, with the help of intellect, we should keep it under control, under leash. Now, this we find a shining example in Sundarakandam in Ramayana. Now, Hanuman goes and searches inside Ravana's Antapura for Sita. He looks at so many women in different positions lying on the bed in the night. So many women in Ravana's Antapura. Now, Afterwards, after comes out and he could not find Sita, he feels very sorry. At that time, he says, Arere, I have made a mistake. I have looked at women without their knowledge when they were sleeping. I am a brahmachari. How can I do that? There he says very nice thing. Paradharavarodhasya prasuptasya nirikshanam idam khalu mamatyartham dharmalopam karishyati. Paradharavarodhasya prasuptasya. That too when they were sleeping. I have gone and looked at them. I have transgressed the dharma. Dharmalopam karishyati. Dharmalopa has happened. Then, it comes repeatedly in Sundarakanda. Whenever he gets confused, whenever there is a confusion in his mind, he sits for 1 hour, one muhurtam, it says. Sundarakandam says. Whenever, there are many occasions like this. He sits for 1 muhurtam, he cogitates. He doesn't come to a conclusion unnecessarily in haste. Similarly, here also, after cogitation, he concludes that he has not done any mistake. How? He says, Kamam drishta maya sarva vishwasta ravanastriyaha natu manasa kinchite vaikrityam upapadyate. This is the most important. Sarva vishwasta ravanastriyaha. All people, all Ravana's women, they were all dependent on Ravana for protection. Kamam drishta maya sarva. I looked at them, looking for Sita. Kamam here means with a desire. What is the desire? Desire is to look for Sita, not any other desire. We have to understand Kamam carefully here. Kamam drishta maya sarva vishwasta ravanastriyaha natu manasa kinchite vaikrityam upapadyate. But there was no vikara in my mind. That is the conclusion he reaches. Not for a moment I lusted after any woman. I didn't have any feelings like that. No vikara. That is what he said. Kinchit vaikrityam natu manasa upapadyate. There was no vikara at all. There was no change of my harmonious, peaceful, normal state of mind. That is what it means. Then he goes further. Manohi hetu sarvesham indriyanam pravartane. Mind is the source of all the indriyas functioning. Functioning of indriyas is controlled by mind. Shubha Shubha Swavasthasu Satyame Suvyavasthitam. Shubha Ashubha Avasthasu. You may confront a situation which is Shubha, which is auspicious. You may confront another situation which is inauspicious. But in both the situations, if your mind is Suvyavasthitam, if it is steady, if it is harmonious, if it is not deviating from the path of Dharma, then what is there to bother about? So it was an Ashubha Avastha as far as I am concerned. For a brahmachari to keep looking at women when they were sleeping without their knowledge was Ashubha Avastha, inauspicious for me. But my mind was steady. There was no vikara. Vikara is actually unsteadiness, wavering, change of mind. Now that no change happened. I was absolutely rooted in my normal, peaceful state. Satyame suvyavasthitam. So that I have not committed any crime. He comes to the. This should be our attitude. This is the greatest lesson which we can learn from Hanuman and Sundarakanda. Of course, we are going to have lectures in Ramayana, and there we will go into all this perhaps in some more detail. Now, Ramayana teaches this. How many situations will happen in life where your indriyas will be continuously tested, and there you have to exercise caution. Now, I think we should move to the next one, which is Dhihi. Dhi means intellect. Dhihi. Dhi means intellect. Now, our internal sense organs are 4, which we saw the other day. One is Manas, second is Buddhi, third is Chitta, 4 is Ahankara. Ahankara is at the root, the ego, the sense of I. I am different from everybody else. Every other creation is different from me. That is, which is normal for any human being, isn't it? So that is Ahankara. Chitta is the repository of memory. All memories, all vasanas, everything resides in Chitta. Good, bad, indifferent. Now, this is where Shastra comes, because Shastra is also residing in Chitta. Smriti, we saw. Because Chitta is full of Smriti, Smriti of good and bad things. Now, if Smriti is also residing there, we have to draw on Smriti. And drawing on Smriti is done by Buddhi. Buddhi is intellect. And finally, Buddhi drives Manas. Manas is the mind. Manas is Sankalpa Vikalpa nature. That is whether to do a thing or whether not to do a thing. That is the quandary of the mind. Now that quandary is decided by Buddhi. Intellect says finally, it analyzes pros and cons, right and wrong, and then it finally says do this. That is Buddhi. How does it do? It draws on Chitta. Because Chitta says, Shastra says this is right, so you should do. In spite of the apparently bad consequences. You may face apparently bad consequences, doesn't matter. Shastra has sanctioned only that as the course under this circumstance, so you must do it. That is Buddhi. But Buddhi says, but Manas doesn't follow. That is the trend for most of us, particularly in Kali Yuga. Buddhi decides properly based on whatever little knowledge of Shastra we have. Most of the time it is deciding correctly, but we don't follow that decision because Manas is drawn by temptations of the Indriyas. That is where Buddhi should direct the Manas and Manas should be under the control of Buddhi. So these four, Manas, Buddhi, Chitta and Ahankara, are the four internal organs, out of which we are now talking about intellect, Buddhi. Dhihi is another term for Buddhi. Because intellect is what decides whether something is right or wrong. Now, how does it decide? It decides based on Shastras. How do we know Shastras, particularly in present circumstances? Shastras we come to know through our parampara. Now, that is what our Acharya is very keen, that we should maintain our parampara. Because everything we cannot learn from books. It's very difficult. We all of us cannot become Dharma Shastra experts. It's not possible. Of course, we should listen to discourses. We should approach our shishtas, our seniors, our elders, listen to their advice. All that is a must. But more than that, we should also follow our family traditions, what our forefathers have been following. Even though some of them may look unreasonable on a scientific touchstone today. For example, Bahishta, the other day somebody was asking about Rajaswala Ashocham, they said. When a woman is out of doors, what should be done? Shastra says what should be done, but we don't want to follow because it is inconvenient for us. Because we place convenience at a higher pedestal than what the Shastra says. That is why the Manas has decided. Though intellectually we know our forefathers have been following, one example, following this Shastra, but we don't want to follow. That is what our Acharya is very keen. This Sampradaya school at Tirupati and various other institutions where integrated learning is now being taught under the auspices of Kanchi Matham is all about this. It's all about Sampradaya. Learn our Sampradaya properly. We have to learn properly. Some of the Sampradayas may not be applicable, may even be wrong. So we have to discard those. Because some of them, in some families, unfortunately take wrong route. For example, some people say, I have gone through this. And some people come and tell me, we don't perform Nandi Shraddham in our family during marriage or during Semantam. We don't. That's not our tradition. What is there to quote tradition here? Shastra says it is a must. And whatever Nandi Shraddham we perform is itself a symbolic one. We ask 9 Brahmana, we invite 9 Brahmanas, we feed them and we honor them. We give them some rice and some dakshina. That's all we are doing, some plantains. A very simple 5 minutes, 10 minutes affair. Now, this people don't want to do on the auspicious occasion of marriage or Semantam and such other. In fact, Nandi Shraddha is prescribed for every auspicious occasion in the Shastra, every. But at least for some important other occasion, Nandi Shraddha is just mentioned as a mantra and Hiranya Rupa. Purohita says something and then we give some dakshina and that is the end of it. But some families say, no, we don't perform Nandi Shraddha. We don't have the tradition of performing Shashtibda Purti in our family. My grandfather never did. What is that to quote father and grandfather in not performing Shashtibda Purti? Shashtibda Purti is ordained in Shastra. It is for your good. Your family is good. Welfare of your progeny. What is wrong with performing it? Even if your father has not, he might not have performed for various reasons. Why do you quote him now? So when we quote Sampradaya, we have to be careful. That is why I am coming to this point. That is what our Acharya is very keen. Follow the right Sampradaya. And there are institutions built under the umbrella of Sampradaya where they train teachers to teach proper sampradaya. So, Shastra we come to know through sampradaya, through books, through tirtha yatras, and so on. And this buddhi, this intellect, is developed, is sharpened during these experiences. Nobody is born with the greatest intellect at the time of birth. Intellect has to be developed like every other learning. Intellect also is developing at a continuous pace. Some people are known as Kushagra Buddhi. Sharpness like Kusha. Kusha is Darba. Darba is supposed to be so sharp that the intellect is compared to Kusha in Shastra. So that kind of sharpness one may not achieve. It may not be in our luck to achieve that kind of sharp. But we should make an attempt to sharpen. It's a continuous process. Be in touch, be in good satsanga. Never be in bad company. That will spoil everything. Whatever little samskara, whatever little knowledge, whatever little shastra you know, everything will go in bad company. So at least that we should ensure that we are always in satsanga. We try to learn. We always keep ourselves open to learning. This is very important. This is all comes under this dharma of Dihi. That's why I am mentioning all this. Now, in the life of Adi Shankara, we find that he was the greatest intellectual ever known in the history of humanity. All of us are agreed on that. Even opponents of Shankara's Advaita Vedanta agree that he was the greatest intellectual ever born on earth. There is no disagreement on that. Now, we find that he enters into debates and easily wins over the opponent. How? Because of his sharpness of intellect. Now, these are stories which should embolden us, which should encourage us to sharpen our intellect. Why we should sharpen our intellect? Unless our intellect is sharp, we will not have the boldness to decide what is right and wrong. The manas will start bossing over buddhi, instead of buddhi bossing over manas. That for that buddhi has to be sharp. That is what Shastra tells us. We find a lot of debates in Upanishad. In fact, Upanishads are full of debates. Kathopanishad, for example, Yajnavalkya, Janaka, so many debates are there. In other Upanishads also, Prashnopanishad, so many questions are asked. Upanishads are full of questions and answers. Now, all these debates are won by sharpness of intellect. It's not easy. We find even in the history of saints of this century, of this current recent times, these few centuries, Nayanmars, Ayvars, they all faced a lot of difficulty in their life, if you read their history. But they won the opponent by intellect. Jnana Sambandar, for example, was dissuaded by his guru, by his senior, Tirunavukarshar, while going to Madurai. They were staying in a place close to Madurai. The queen of Madurai invited Jnana Sambandar. There was a problem there, serious problem, because the king had embraced the Jainism and the queen wanted to bring him back to Shaiva doctrine. This was the mission. Now, the queen invited Jnana Sambandar, and Tirunavukarshar said, don't go. All the planets are against you. That's where the Kodarapadhyam came in. All the planets are, you are a very young boy. The Jains will kill you. But he said, no, what can planets do to me? That is the power of surrender. If one surrenders himself to the Lord completely, he is very bold. We see all this in Jnana Sambandar's history. There he goes and then, of course, he uses Vibhuti, he cures the king, and then the Jainas are not convinced, they subject him to a lot of tests. All the tests he passes successfully. All the tests which were meant to harm him, meant to kill him, all those tests he passes. We find in the history of, how is it possible? He used sharpest intellect, isn't it? Samayochita buddhi. Buddhi suited to the time. Now, Chanakya defines this intellect very nicely. Nayatrasti gatirvayo rashminam kya vivasvataha tatrapi pravishatyashu buddhir buddhimatam sada. Where Even Vayu, even air cannot enter, Buddhi will enter. He says, Tatrapi pravashati ashu. Immediately, without difficulty, Buddhi will enter where a place where even Vayu cannot enter, he says. That is the sharpness of Buddhi. Such a man is called Buddhiman. Tatrapi pravishatyashu buddhir buddhimatam sada. Buddhir yasya balam tasya. So says another saying. The man who has got Buddhi on his side has got all the strength in the world. Now, in Gita, we find Arjuna pleading before Krishna, you have taught me so many things, but how to bring the mind under control? It's not possible. Asamshayam mahabaho manodurnigraham chalam abhyatena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grishyate. This is what Krishna says. He says he does not differ from Arjuna. He says whatever you say is nonsense. He doesn't say that. He says yes, what you say is right. Asamshayam mahabaho manodurnigraham chalam. Mind is very volatile, very wavering. Durnigraham, very difficult to control. He accepts it. But you have to start practicing. If you keep saying this and don't do anything, that will not lead you anywhere. Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grishyate. Abhyasa and vairagya. These are the two measures which Krishna teaches, which are taught by Patanjali in his Yoga Sutra. Same Abhyasa and Vairagya. In many Shastras, you take any Purana, this is mentioned, Abhyasa and Vairagya. Abhyasa is repeated practice of bringing the mind under control, bringing the mind away from the temptation. That is, it is the temptation which is at the root of all the problems. So, you have to repeatedly practice that. See, when there is no temptation present around you, and if you claim that your faculties are under control, your sense organs are under control, your mind is under control, that is no achievement. Because such a state will easily be disturbed when the temptation comes into play. So, in the presence of temptations, like it happened with Hanuman, that is why Hanuman's example is important, isn't it? In the presence of temptations, if your mind has not given way, if your intellect has not given way, that is the test. So he says that. That for that you have to repeatedly practice. Abhyasa, to keep away from temptation is not that is required for the beginner. But later on, when you actually go through the experience of facing a temptation, you have to be firm. Vairagya. How do you get the firmness? Vairagya, detachment. To repeatedly cogitate in your mind, whatever is tempting me is not permanent, is impermanent. Whatever is permanent, Sanatana, is only my Atma. Even my body is impermanent. If you keep repeating this to yourself, that is Abhyasa. Detachment will come. Abhyasa and Vairagya go together. So, detachment will slowly come in. That's what he says. Abhyasena ta kaunteya vairagyena cha grishyate. He is teaching another way. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmara yudhya cha. Bhagavan says. Sarveshu kaleshu is very important. At all times, no exception. Mam anusmara. Keep thinking of me. Yudhya cha. Keep fighting. Yudhya cha means because Arjuna was engaged in Yuddha. For us, it means keep doing your duty. Keep acting. Keep acting, at the same time keep remembering me. This is the essence of Gita actually. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu, at all times, there is no exception to that. We will say, no, he has said that when I am inconvenient, when all conveniences are favorable to me, I will remember him. When I am in myself in the throes of a crisis, how will I remember him? I am solving my problem. This is our attitude because we are not used to do multitasking. Nowadays, multitasking is the order of the day. Women are very good at multitasking by nature. They are able to do so many things at the same time. Men are unfortunately a little weak. We all know it. But we have to develop multitasking, at least with respect to this task. The task here is to remember Bhagavan. Whatever we do, we should remember Bhagavan. Sometimes we may be doing the wrong thing. Even then you remember, at least you will not do it again for the second time. One time if you do a small mistake, it is excused. But if you keep repeating, Ajnanataha, Jnanataha, Asakritopi, Sakritopi. Now, papas are listed like this when we do Sankalpa at the time of Avaniyavitam, Upakarma. Knowingly, unknowingly, once or many times. Asakrit, Sakrit. Sakrit means only once. Asakrit means many times. Why I do many times? Because of temptation, isn't it? So, multitasking if you do, if you remember Bhagavan all the time, this temptation will gradually come down. That is what he says. Taila dhara, all the Shastra says, all the Shastras are unanimous in saying this. Mind should be directed to Bhagavan's lotus feet as if it is Taila dhara, like the flow of Taila, not water. Water does not flow continuously, whereas oil flows continuously. There is a difference between oil and water in the flow. From one vessel, if you pour water into another vessel, you will find it is not continuous in case of water. It is continuous, 100% continuous in the case of oil. That is why he says, Taila dharavati. All the Shastras say this. If your mind is continuously engaged in the thought of Bhagavan, it is possible. Saints have proved that it is possible to think of Bhagavan and do your work. It is not impossible. We think that doing our work, particularly if it is what we call secular work, not connected with religion. If you do that, we cannot think of God. That is our stand today. That is not correct. All saints have proved it, even today. Manu says same thing in a very nice way. Vashekritve gramam samyam misha manastasa sarvan samsadhayed arthan akshenvan yogatastanum. Same thing. Vashekritve indriya gramam, all the indriyas. Indriya gramam means group of indriyas, not one indriya. All the indriyas vashekritva, keep them under control. Samyam misha manastasa. Similarly, keep the mind under control. Sarvan samsadhayed arthan. If you do this, there is nothing which you cannot achieve, he says. Sarvan samsadhayati arthan. Manu says this. You will achieve everything in your life. Akshinvan yogatastanum. You need not torture your body. That also he says. For doing this, do I have to torture my body? No. Akshinvan yogatastanum. If you keep the mind engaged at the lotus feet of Bhagavan, you need not torture your body and you will still achieve all your auspicious aims by keeping your sense organs and mind under control. Now, there is a story of a king called Yayati. It's a very oft quoted story, very famous in our Purana. It's quoted in several Puranas, several Shastras. Yayati was one of the first kings in the lunar dynasty. In the same dynasty, Krishna was born later on. Yadu was one of the kings. That's why that dynasty is called Yadava dynasty. Now, this Yayati was even before Yadu. Now, Yayati, in his time, could not keep his sense organs under control. He wanted to enjoy women endlessly for many, many years. For that, he wanted his youth to continue. Youth is not something which will live with you all the time, isn't it? You are bound to become old. He knew that. He had become old. He had become old. He could not enjoy sensual pleasures. So what did he do? He went and prayed to Brahma. Brahma said, if somebody is willing to give you his youth, you can enjoy. Otherwise, I can't do anything. Now, who will give youth in exchange for old age? Because the person who gives youth will accept his old age. So who will do that? Nobody will do that. Then he approached his sons. All his sons refused except the last son, Pururavas. The last son accepted that. Then he took his youth and he gave him his old age. Pururavas did not mind it. He knew that. He was ready for it. He was a jnani. Now, this Yayati enjoyed for 1,000 years with that youth. Then, at the end, the jnana dawned on him. It's great. It's not easy for a person who is on this line to acquire jnana, but he acquired. Something strange happened with him. That must be his purva karma. He says, Najata kama kamanam upabhogena. It's a very famous verse. Upabhogena shamyati havisha krishnavartmeva Bhuyeva Devardhate. Kama can never be fulfilled by repeated enjoyment. This is the lesson I have learned. He says that. It does not apply to any particular sensual desire. It applies to every desire which arises in human mind. It can be even eating something. It can be anything. Hearing something. Looking at something. It can be anything. Any desire. No desire can be fulfilled by repeatedly satisfying that desire because it remains unsatisfied. The more fuel you add to the fire, it asks more and more fuel. He is giving that example. Havisha Krishna Vartmeva Bhuyeva, like Agni, with more and more fuel, it keeps increasing. It doesn't die. Agni doesn't get extinguished with more and more fuel. It increases with intensity, its ferocity. So and so also, this desire increases its ferocity the more you start fulfilling it. And there, for Agni, there are many terms. For Agni, there are many terms. He is not using the word Agni or Vanni. He says Krishna Vartma, is a very rare description for Agni. Krishna Vartma means the one which leaves a black smoke. That's the meaning. Krishna is black, Vartma is plume. Black plume it leaves, isn't it? There is no fire without smoke. There is no smoke without fire, isn't it? Fire is always accompanied by smoke. Now he says, the one which leaves the black plume. That means what? All desires will leave you with a black plume. That is what indirectly he means. They will take you further and further in the downward spiral, in the spiritual scale. That is what it means. That is why advisedly he uses the Vyasa Bhagavan. He uses the term Krishna Vartma for describing Agni because it has a black aspect to it. Agni is red, isn't it? Agni is not black, but it's followed by black plume. He says that Havisha Krishna. The more and more Havis you add to Agni, more and more fuel you add to Agni, it goes on increasing. Same thing happens to Kama, he says. So we have gone up to Dhihi. Next is Vidya. We have got three more to cover: Vidya, Satyam, and Akrodha, which we hope to cover in the next discourse tomorrow. Tomorrow is the end of the 5 lectures on common dharmas. We continue tomorrow. If there are any questions, Vivek can tell me before we close.
Mama, I don't see any questions per se.
Okay.
But so I guess that tells me. But I don't know if there are some individuals who joined a little late. So I don't know if they're aware that you're actually speaking from Srimatam. So I'm just again. Yeah, so that is the thing. So for the next, I think the subsequent Upanyasams will all be happening from Srimatam. Right?
Yes. Because till the middle of January, till Sankranti, I am here.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
So that is a very special thing. So I think that
yes, sure.
as you said, whatever you said has been enhanced. And
sure. That is the power of the Acharya.
So I just wanted to create a question because you're already in the Srimatam. What is the special? We've heard about the term Ghatika Sthanam, and you mentioned Ghatika Sthanam about two sessions back. And we've heard of Ghatika Sthanam in Kanchipuram, and you are in Madam. Can you talk to us about the role Ghatika Sthanam played in society?
Ghatika Sthanam is nothing but a university. In olden days, university was known by the name of Ghatika Sthanam in the southern part of India. There were many Ghatika Sthanams in many places in the south. And one of the famous Ghatika Sthanams, like Nalanda and Takshashila in the north, was in Kanchipuram. Kanchipuram was known for Ghatika Sthana. And that is the reason why our Acharya established this Chandrasekharendra University at Yenathur at Kanchipuram, because that was the Kanchipuram is the place of the Ghatika Sthana. Ghatika Sthana is a university where all the 14 Vidyasthanas which we described were taught as a regular part of the syllabus to aspiring students. So it had a big name. Scholars had come from all over India, all over the world to Kanchipuram. There are evidences for that, inscriptions on stones and so on. A lot of studies have gone into that. And it has been established that this Ghatika Sthanam was a famous intellectual seat of learning.
I probably have subsequent questions, but I'll hold them for subsequent sessions to kind of keep
Okay.
the interest. If there are any questions, we welcome it from the floor. Otherwise, with Periva Anugraham, we can close for today.
Yeah.
So, Mama, நீங்க மங்களம் சொல்லிட்டான்னு நினைக்கிறேன்.
Okay. So we close for today. We continue tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the last of the 3 lectures on common dharmas. And then we move on to Nataraja Tattvam next Saturday, and followed by 5 lectures on Sankshipta Ramayana. Sankshipta Ramayana has been chosen because it is a continuity of dharma. Ramayana is nothing but dharma. So our treatment of Ramayana will be from the point of view of dharma. Wherever dharma is espoused, that is what we are going to bring out, try to bring out. So with these few words, we will close for the day. Namah Parvati Pataye Har Har Mahadeva Sarvatra Govinda Rama Sankirtanam Govinda Govinda Shri Jagadambika Jai Jaya.